this is a really special treat. We had Greta Van Susteren on the line. She's not a usual user of Substack, but we're bringing her back to the app. As you know, Greta, I don't think she needs much of an introduction, but she is an anchor on Newsmax, a former anchor at Voice of America. Before that, she spent a lot of her career at Fox News. And then before that, CNN as a legal analyst. And now Greta is here to keep it real with us about Voice of America and what happened this week. I think, there's a lot of news out there. Voice of America is a news agency that we both actually worked for. I was an intern there. I was there on the night of President Obama's election, 2008. I was a senior in college working there, helping them with the wire service. And it was a really amazing experience for me. It was a quieter newsroom than the type that you and I have worked in since. Like I've worked at CNN, obviously, and ABC News, New York Post, other places. But I did meet a lot of like really dedicated journalists who believed in the mission of Voice of America. And in fact, it was my mom who really encouraged me to work there. She came from this country, from Soviet Poland, and like just appreciated what the mission of the agency is and was. Obviously, I have heard, like everyone else, that it's a mess in a lot of different ways.
It is.
So that's why I thought if anyone's going to keep it real, it's going to be Greta to come on and talk about where we are, how we got here, can it be saved, and what it was like there.
First of all, I have to tell you, as you've listed all the places I've worked, so it sounds like I can't keep a job, and
that's not true.
But it gives me the opportunity to be able to look at some of these different news organizations, and Voice America is unlike any other news organization. It's owned by the government, so it's a lot different than privately owned. But it has such an important function. You talked about your mother coming from Soviet Poland. Is that Voice America was created in the late 40s to reach behind the Iron Curtain so that people could see our democratic values. And it was so profoundly important that we could tell the world about us. And so we'd sneak in signals, different way. It was radio in the beginning. And so it told a lot about America. And so it was really, really important. Then later in the 70s, there were some changes made to it, and Voice America can't broadcast in the United States because ABC, CBS, NBC got all upset. So it's all broadcast outside the United States, but as a consequence, the American people don't realize its importance, and I get it. But it's the only way for most people in America to learn about us. And it includes not just news, but music and our culture. And it does so much so that people understand Americans. And, it seems inconceivable to us that people wouldn't know what we're like or what our culture is like and everything, but they just don't. And even to modern day, it has become so important because when I was there, I had a show every week, but I also did a documentary for Voice America. I won a New York Film Festival award, and we were very proud of it. But it was about the Rohingya Muslims. They had been living in Myanmar since the 17 or 1800s. And all of a sudden, Myanmar decided that they didn't want them there and essentially pushed them out, 1 million of them. There were some that had attacked a police station, so they decided to push 1 million of them out. They pushed them north into Bangladesh. This was after pulling babies out of arms, and throwing them in fire pits and doing unthinkable things to these people, persecuting them. Well, then they went into Bangladesh. Bangladesh couldn't absorb them. So they're penned in, and they're not allowed to get jobs. They're not allowed to do education, not allowed to do anything. But what Voice America did, besides doing a documentary on it and putting it on YouTube, which is also put on YouTube, so it puts a spotlight around the world, but it also gave them shortwave radios. And with shortwave radios, they're able to reach out in the world because there's no other communication for them. And it's something like, it may be expensive, but, some things are costly, and it's, there are a lot of really good things about our American culture that people don't know about. They think they know a lot of things they don't like about us. Well, there are a lot of things to like us about. So it's very important. The problem is, like every organization, it's got problems, and its biggest problem, I think, is that it broadcasts. The TV part broadcasts in what they call services, which is basically different networks. There are 47 or 48. which means it's 47 or 48 different languages. So whoever runs it will speak one language, probably English, and doesn't know what the Cambodian or the Laotian or the Mandarin or whatever the other services are reporting. So you don't really have sort of the editorial control. And I always thought we should do it in English and then dub it into the local language, but people who are receiving it want to hear it in their own language, in their own with their own accents. Maybe as time marches on, with artificial intelligence, we'll be able to accomplish that. We'll be able to speak in English and it'll come across in Cambodian with a Cambodian accent or something. But that's a problem. That's a problem I saw with Voice of America. Is just sort of the editorial control of it. Now, one other thing is that a lot of President Trump, first time around, didn't like it, his administration, because there was criticism that was broadcast on Voice of America of the administration. And there are two ways to look at it.
Like what kind of criticism? I'm not
I
recalling.
mean, just anything, anything
Yeah.
that the president doesn't like. Obama didn't like the media. Nobody likes the media as a president.
Right. I mean, to be in the media, you have to be holding the administration.
But whether it was justified criticism or not, to me, it showed the world, our values is that we're able to criticize administrations. Many parts of the world you can't. So I actually thought that was a plus. But
Right. A model of democracy that's of free speech, of free press to places like Iran, China, Russia, where we try to get our broadcasts. Like just for a little context, Voice of America, through all of its different agencies like Radio Free Europe, Radio Asia, FARDA.
Charging. I've got
Yeah, exactly. There's so many different of them. They reach 420 million people in 63 different languages. And like Greta said, it started actually in 1942 as part of a federal effort during World War II to combat Nazi propaganda in Latin America, and then evolved into a part of the Cold War effort. But yeah, just back to what you were saying though about the issues that the Trump administration had with it. They didn't like the criticism of the administration. But how did that like evolve? I know Michael Packer came in, right, as CEO at that point.
Yes, but by then, the place, when I say that it has problems, it needs to be reworked. It didn't have the flexibility to do a lot of things that news organizations should. And let me just talk for a second about the building. Kari Lake, who's the new special something or other, she was named to be the director, but she's got a different job until she's the director. And she's the one who's slashing things from it. Look, the place there's a lot of waste over there, like every government agency. It's just so much. But she was highly critical of the new building that they have rented or leased. But what she may not know is that in the old building, there were areas we couldn't get into because of asbestos. The big signs, don't go here.
That was the building I was in.
There's mold. There were escalators inside the building, and I don't think they ever worked the whole 2.5 years I was there. Elevators didn't always work. I mean, the building has to be completely gutted. There's no way any organization could thrive in there. So about a year ago, I guess they got a new building, and they got a phenomenal lease because there's so much empty space in DC because of COVID. And she's got this. She has this slick video that she put on Twitter, on X, which talks about how the government wastes, and if they have this, they have that, they have all these conference rooms, everything. I don't even know if they're using all of them. But what she may not know is that it's GSA who rents these buildings for these people, not necessarily VOA. That the building was actually cheaper than the one that they were going to go into, that COVID opened up a lot of inexpensive. So, it's not one size fits all. And in our sort of collective interest in this country, by virtue of the mandate of the election to cut everything in government, we need to do it, but we need to do it wisely. And I just think that her criticism, maybe it's valid, but I think it has to be balanced against, she needs to go see what it was and understand the challenges that the people who made decisions, maybe it's a bad decision, but I'm not so sure that she understands the challenges, because that old building was one of the craziest places to work I've ever been in.
My God, even the furniture, when you sat in the chairs, they were like out of the 70s. It was bizarre. You felt like you were walking backward in time when you walked into that building. Except for the Middle East Broadcasting Network had all the new shiny fancy stuff, but that was during the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, so they wanted that was obviously a place where they were putting more money, right? Rather
I,
than the
I'm,
Africa
yeah,
reports where I
but
was.
but I never even saw that area because there's so many different networks that I never
Right.
even saw that network. But the equipment was so bad; it was so dated. I mean, I've never seen
Yeah.
anything like it. And it's like, there was, and nobody. I mean, Congress, the American people, nobody wanted to bring it up to speed what it should be because people didn't realize its value because nobody watches it because they don't watch it domestically because it doesn't
Yeah.
broadcast here. And because there is a fair thing to be said is that with the internet, we are reaching other parts of the world, but not everybody does have internet. People still use shortwave radio places, which just seems unbelievable to us. So it's sort of it's an important luxury where we get to tell the world about us, including our music, our art, our news, the fact how we challenge our leaders. It talks about so many things that are good about America, about our values.
It's soft power, as they might
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting though. I wonder, like Marco Rubio, for example, his family coming from Cuba. I wonder what he would think about something like this, because obviously in Cuba, we try to broadcast there, and this can sometimes be the only place where they can get news that's free press. Iran. And because of that, there are so many journalists from the Voice of America that are imprisoned around the world, probably more so than other news organizations, because, maybe they would, those.
Yeah, let me repeat that we don't know. I mean, what they're saying. Our reporters, our VOA reporters, they are not Americans necessarily. They're very few Americans. They're native to the places that are being reporting. And one thing that's difficult is I've never could figure out how you run the place if you don't know what they're saying.
Right. Yeah. So if you were going to, so when I met Kari Lake at the inauguration, at the Turning Point Ball, we were chatting about Voice America, and she actually seemed really excited about taking it over. And I got the feeling from her that she saw this as like a kind of a network that broadcasted to the world like Trump's vision of America and the world, and almost sort of like a Trump TV. Did you ever talk to her about?
Well, she said in an interview that it was not going to be Trump TV, and and whether it's Trump TV, and I mean, it's going to be a 4-year stint. So it's like that. I worry more that she's gonna do like she's gonna get rid of it. It's more
Mm,
in that video she put on X or whatever it is. X is that she said she talked about it being downsized, which that's fine. I mean, downsize it, make it more efficient. I'm all for that. Because you don't need. I mean, when I first started in business, you needed a huge studio with these giant cameras. Now we do everything on an iPhone, so I'm fine for making it, slick
mhm.
and efficient. But I don't want her. But sort of with the enthusiasm in this town, the over enthusiasm of trying in some corners of getting rid of waste and fraud, that we don't always use good judgment. Think of the things that are valuable and very helpful, because it's very easy to look at VOA and think, let's get rid of it, rather than thinking of looking at VOA and saying, what's its value? Where has it been good? What should we maintain? What should we build on? and
Mm,
I'm and I thought that she wanted to, because she has a news background. I thought that she wanted to, sort of be an advocate for VOA for its good things, not to be foolish and want advocate for things that need to change. But I was very disappointed in this video she did, and there are a lot of things that she said that are right. I mean, that it seems very costly, very pricey, what they've done in moving VOA to this new building. But I don't know what I don't know if she's seen the old building. I don't know if she's done a cost comparison to other
mm.
buildings. Someone told me that this was $150 million cheaper deal than what was earlier proposed for Voice America. I don't know if that's true or not. And if you look at things, if you take a lease over 10 years here in DC, it's going to be a humongous amount. So I it may be 100% accurate. It was a little too slick for me, and I
Mhm.
worried that it was. I didn't get a sense that she saw the value in Voice of America and was looking at the dollar cost, and that's a fair thing to look at because
Yeah. I just wouldn't want to inherit a organization that's a shell of an organization, and that's essentially what she has right now. Somebody asked a very good question, Pat Sprinkle. once you get rid of it, how do you rebuild and reacquire those eyeballs or ears? Hard to imagine it ever being the same after 4 years. I mean, that's a really good point. Once you've lost that viewership, now it's just music playing on a lot of these on these lines. Like it's hard to
Yeah,
get people
that's
back.
a good point. I saw one statistic, and numbers are numbers, but it said that it reaches 350 million people a week, which is, I mean, cable news doesn't reach that, and
Yeah.
news, I mean, it reaches a huge number. I don't know how you regain those viewers. That I have no idea, because people get sort of hooked on their viewing habits. But now, I mean, it is true, they can go to the internet and they can watch CNN, Newsmax, Fox, ABC,
Mhm.
CBS, so they can get America in those places. But what none of us is doing is, we're not doing American jazz or American rock or American rap. We're not doing
Mhm.
any of that, which a lot of those things VOA supplies that we don't do. And
Yeah.
we don't do it in those we only do it in English.
So from your experience being inside, do you think that there was a leftist bias inside the newsroom?
Well, first of all, I only knew the one narrow niche, which was the English. I have no idea what everybody else was saying.
Yeah.
Um, Nobody told me what to say or do while I was there. Nobody told me what to say or do at CNN, Fox. They did
They
try to.
wouldn't dare. Come on, Greta.
What?
They wouldn't dare with you.
Well, no, but that's why I got fired at MSNBC. They
I
tried to
forgot to mention
Yeah,
MSNBC.
no, they told me. I mean, after I'd been at CNN and Fox, and then MSNBC tried to tell me what to do. I almost thought they were joking, because I had like a 15 or 18-year career in the news business, and nobody ever told me. So I never occurred to me. So that's why I got fired at MSNBC, because they said I needed to play ball, and I thought, that didn't work. So anyway, but so nobody told me at VOA, but I was a volunteer. I went over to Voice America as a volunteer for about 2.5 years, because I had the means to do it, the economic means to do it, and it seemed like a very interesting opportunity. So I did that. But nobody told me what to do. But look, if you get a group of people together, my best example of this is when Mitt Romney in 2012 picked Paul Ryan as his running mate, the Speaker of the House, who, by the way, is from my home state of Wisconsin. That night, I was sitting in my office at Fox News, and I was flipping around with the remote, and all these people reporting on all the cable news that Paul Ryan was a bold choice. And I thought to myself, what are the odds everybody's choosing the same word? And that's really sort of the biggest problem, I think, with the media, is that we live in an echo chamber. And so people talk about a bias. It's because, it's like we're living in a world where there's a fixed view, unfortunately. And it's really sort of hard to break out of that view when you're living in that world. So you say, is there a liberal bias? I don't know. I only spoke one language over there, and I was there just doing my show, and I couldn't watch the other shows because it was broadcast internationally, foreign, and not domestically.
And she also said that it was, she said, I'm just quoting Kari Lake's tweet, from top to bottom, this agency is a giant rotten burden to the American taxpayer, a national security risk for this nation, and irretrievably broken. Do you agree with that?
No. Uh, Actually, no, I don't. Because I mean, which part of it? Let's take it apart.
Let's start with giant rotten burden to the American taxpayers,
It
then we'll
it
move
is
on to.
it is an expensive tax. It is expensive to the American taxpayer, but you have to weigh every expense against its benefit. And if the benefit is to tell the world and provide the world, to tell them about the United States, about our values, even make it safer for us to travel different places, make it more receptive. If countries are deciding who we're going to do business with, China or the United States, well, the United States looks like a nice place. We like their people. We like their culture. We like, maybe they'll pick us. So I don't, it depends on, if you're just going to look at the cost, it's expensive. But you've got to balance it against the value. And I don't know if she's taken that into consideration. And part of the problem is that nobody knows much about Voice of America, because you've got to go out of the country to see it. I bet she has never seen Voice of America. If she travels overseas, chances are she might turn on CNN International, but that's about it.
Yeah, Voice of
So
America is for those places where you have to hide and listen. where the
Yeah.
Ayatollah is coming for you.
Yeah,
You know?
but I was in Mongolia, and some little kid came up and pointed at me and said, "I know you," and it was said in the other language. So I asked the person what she's saying, and she said she knows me. And I said, "How?" I asked the kid how she knows me, and the kid knew me from Voice of America, a little kid in Mongolia. So
Yeah.
this is a nomad kid.
Okay, I want to go on to the next line in that statement. A national security risk for this nation. How is Voice of America a national security risk?
I don't. That one, I mean, I can't answer that one. I don't think news, we do our best to get it right. I know there's a lot of criticism of the news and all that, but I would not call it a national security risk. Uh,
Irretrievably
I,
broken.
I need more information on that one from her. Yeah. What's the next one?
Irretrievably broken.
I think there are a lot of changes I would make in it. I would not say what it has value, so it's worth trying to save. I say cut it down,
Mm.
bring it into the year 2025 technically, but make it so that all the languages, whoever runs it knows the languages, or has access to, so has editorial control. Figure out that problem that I raised, where the who's ever in charge doesn't know 47 out of the 48 languages. We've got to figure out some translation issues. So I would do that. But to me, it has such huge value that those barriers are worth overcoming.
I wonder if it would transition to YouTube and like social media as a way to kind of reach those places. Although maybe some of it is censored in those other countries.
I don't know. Look, I mean, it has to be trimmed. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no question about it.
right.
But there are a lot of things that could make it better.
Okay. Are you concerned though about the world without Voice of America?
The world, I'm concerned about the world for a lot of reasons. I'm more concerned about
but
Iran
but
using their
specifically
nuclear
because of the
weapon.
world without Voice of America.
Voice America. I'm not concerned about the world. I think the world is a better place for us as Americans if people can see who we are. All they hear about us is when we drop bombs someplace or do something like that. But they really don't know about our culture. There's whether it's a police officer taking a cat out of a tree, or some jazz artist playing on the streets of New York and talented, or some great gymnast or something. There's so much more. I mean, Voice America isn't all news. It's really supposed to be about the United States. And we're the ones who did the iPhone. I'm not so sure that's turned out to be such a good thing, because that gives us access to social media, which is another issue. But there are a lot of things like art. I mean, the sports. I mean, we've done so much, but
Right.
in the things that you don't get in your conventional news. And that's what I think originally sort of the mission of Voice America was, to tell the world about us and about democracy. So I think it has extreme value.
It's funny, when I landed in North Korea with Secretary Pompeo during Trump's first term, one of the first questions that Kim Jong Un's like top officials and handlers had was about our pop culture. That's what they wanted to talk about. That's
But
like their
I've been there 3 times, and every time they thought I was that we spend Saturday night thinking of ways to kill them. I said, no, we're trying to decide whether we should order pizza or Chinese food.
Yeah, that's true. That's just as an update for people who are just jumping on. I've been, talking to a lot of reporters, executives, former board members, because there is no board at Voice of America anymore. And one of the arguments that they're hoping to make is that because the money has been appropriated by Congress for the explicit use of, funding Voice of America, that they might be able to argue before the courts that it can't be shuttered. They're also hopeful that because Kari Lake was not appointed by the board, she's a senior advisor to the acting CEO, and she made that pretty clear in her letter to all the to all of the employees there and contractors, that she may not actually have the statutory authority to close down the news agency. So those are some of the arguments that they're hoping to make before the courts. I
I'm
don't know.
I'm a lawyer. I don't know any the answer. In spite of that, in spite of being a lawyer, I don't know whether that's true or not. But I hate to see that the whole issue of Voice of America come down to a war, and where it's dragged into court. I'd rather have a discussion where we determine its value to the world and to the American people, and then figure out what resources we're willing to devote to it and how to achieve it. We're in so many wars right now that, over all sorts of things. But I
Yeah.
don't know that, I mean, I may be Pollyanna about that, thinking that people really want to sit down and discuss things and figure out a solution.
God. about that. Question was, does Voice of America cover Radio Free Asia and Radio Free
Yeah,
Europe? Yes, it covers all
yeah,
of them.
yeah. It's got all that. It's got a huge reach.
Yep, and it has Varda radio. It has Middle East news. They try to reach everywhere. I guess just to wrap this up, because we're getting on a half hour anyway, and I'm sure you've got to run. Are there any DOGE cuts that you're really concerned about? Like, where would you rank Voice of America on the list, and which one are you most concerned about?
I'm not concerned about the DOGE cuts per se. What I'm worried about is that the cuts are just done without any thinking. Because I think we do have to cut. I mean, look, you can tell how much cutting we have to do is that now when you drive in DC during rush hour, there's actually traffic because nobody was going to work. I don't say nobody, but the government, we really did need to do something in this government, but we have to not just take a chainsaw as Elon Musk sort of showed. I mean, there's no doubt, no question in my mind, we have to cut things. I'm 100% behind cutting things, but I would like to do it with a little more thought. However, I will say this is that we've tried to do it before using thought, and we form all these commissions and they make all these studies, and then nothing's ever done. So I mean, that's the flip side of this is how do you do this right? So I don't know how to do it right. I do like the idea that there were severance packages because people here, they have to feed their children, but there's so much government waste here. I mean, it's just breathtaking how much government waste there is.
Right. The only thing with the Voice of America thing is like everyone's still being paid, even though they're not working. So it's not like money was saved.
Well, I'll tell you, when we were there, we used to laugh about the fact that they're firing people who hadn't shown up at work was almost an impossibility. I don't know if it's a civil service union or whatever it is, but Voice America needs some overhaul, but it also needs to be saved.
Yeah. Well, if you have an idea for it, Greta, maybe you should put your.
It's funny. It's like, do you know how many people have over the past couple of years have suggested I put my hat in the ring to run the place? And it's like, I'm just like the worst. I mean, I don't know how to run anything.
It's true. News journalists make the worst executives. We are not good at management.
I have no idea how to. I ran a small law firm 30 years ago, but I have no idea. I mean, I certainly have ideas on how to improve things, but I don't know how to run things.
I'm going to end with this. This is from Bob Leeton. He said, I lived in Eastern Europe in the early 90s, just after the fall of the Berlin Wall. VOA was incredibly valuable.
Yeah. That's my point. If you live outside the United States, it's great value, and because it's broadcast out there, and that's what the sadness is. Is Americans wanting to just cut things because they don't see the value of it, and I get that, but that's a failure of all of us who support VOA to communicate it effectively to them.
So maybe they should have let it broadcast in the U.S. and told the networks.
Completely. I mean, well, one of the sort of sneaky things that's happened is that what I used to do is I used to take my TV show and I'd put it. As I said, you could get my the documentary I did on the Rohingya. You can get that on YouTube. So I'd post things. It's called Displaced, by the way. And I'm very proud of it because it's a group of people that no one in the United States ever reported on because it's too expensive to get to Bangladesh. By the way, I paid for the trip myself. I should say I didn't charge taxpayers. But it's so expensive to get there, and the Rohingya, they don't have oil. They don't have. I mean, they have nothing that's like is gonna. A lot of these networks that doesn't have a lot of money. They don't have anything. They're just poor. They're just people, and they've got completely ignored by the American media. So. Voice of America did have the luxury of being able to do a documentary on them and give them a little bit of a voice.
Well, that was an amazing conversation, Greta. Thank you so much for keeping it real. I just want to add one more thing before we hang up, before my dog has a complete conniption. I asked Greta yesterday, can we talk about what's going on at Voice of America? And she responded to me only on the record, which I appreciate because she's a baddie and a lot of people don't want to talk on the record about things. I was like, I talk on background, but Greta says, I will only speak about this on the record. And that's why I said, why don't we just do it on video then? Because she's already on TV.
It's like I've always said things using my name attached to it. It's like, You know, and I've gotten this far doing it without everybody hating me. So I just I half hate me, but I just like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
in this city we have such an overuse of anonymous sources where we have
right.
drive-by ambush or something that when I speak I'll only do attaching my name to it, and if I say something stupid I'll have to live with it.
Yeah. Well, this was great. I don't think you said anything like that, but appreciate everyone who
Thank
joined.
you.
Please,
Thank you.
sign up for my. Please, like consider subscribing to my newsletter as I start my new independent media venture. But also subscribe to Greta. I'm trying to get her on Substack. We can do this more often.
Yeah, but
So
I forgot my password. I had a hard time getting on.
she
Yeah.
doesn't know her password, so maybe the people at Substack can help her. In the
Anyway.
meantime, all right.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.